And we are COMP397, and we're back. It's week 3, lesson 3, part 1. And today we're going to talk about your first assignment, which is going to be due next week, right? So I know, it's the assignments start going. They start flying. Last week, this week, for sure. So let's bring it up. If you look on eCentennial, it should be up there already. It's called Document the Dragon, right? Which is kind of your first assignment to get you into using HTML5. We're going to use a different framework for this one, but we're going to talk about it a little bit today and tell you how it all works, right? So what's the deal? Why are we doing this one? And I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it up here. So we're going to use the Dragon Game site files provided on GitHub. So if you go to GitHub, my GitHub, right? And this is what I recommend you do if you look at GitHub. You should already, if you haven't if you don't know where my GitHub link is or my files, it is github.com/my last name, right? So if you look there, and if you look under my repositories, right, and if you search for Dragon, right, it's not this one. It's not COMP100 the Dragon. I do one for COMP100 as well. It's this one, the Dragon, for COMP397, right? I would recommend you go here and you fork me on GitHub. Click fork. And then what it'll do is it'll copy these files into your GitHub. All right, and then from there you can download and modify them as whatever you want to do. Okay, but if you fork me on GitHub, you can see this is a good starting point for how the Dragon will work. Okay, so you're going to get a code base. Okay, the code base is small, right? But the idea here is you're going to make your first kind of game, and we'll talk about what that is. And what am I expecting you to do? Really, what we're talking about here, it's not so much the game that I'm worried about for this one. It's the documentation. I want you guys to look, you kind of put together your game design document. Now, because you guys may or may not be game students, right? And mostly, I believe, 99% of you are not. You would not have had kind of training on how to put together a game document, right? But it doesn't matter if it's a game document or if it's some kind of technical document for your application. Let's say tomorrow you're working at CIBC or RBC or some kind of, a government agency or something. Whenever you do an application, there's always documentation attached to it. So this is the documentation piece, the technical docs that you're going to need for this one, right? So I'm going to do it one time. This is the assignment that does it. It's worth 10% of your final grade. It's due next week on Friday. So you got about a week and a half to get this done, all right? Friday at midnight. There are 40 points to the document, right? So to the actual assignment. And you guys haven't seen my assignments before, so this is a good chance to look at how I want you to look at the assignments and how we do assignments together. So let's take a look. Use the Dragon Game site files provided on GitHub as your template. Create both an internal and external document for the site. When I say internal document, I mean comments. That's what I mean. I don't need you to make another document. When I say internal, it means you have to start, you go through with your comment styles and you comment your HTML and your JavaScript and so on. And if you've made change to your CSS, you can add comments there as well. And the idea here is that you document, what you're doing in your programs, so that somebody else, like maybe me, can go in and find out what the hell you're doing, right? What did this person do here, right? So that's what we do with. That's why I say it's called Document the Dragon. That's really what the thing is all about. Okay. Currently, the site only gives the player the choice of going into Cave 1 or Cave 2. We'll talk about that in a second. I want you to extend the functionality of the site to include 2 more decision levels for the player. An example, after going into the first cave, which we'll see in a second, the player is given the option to turn right or left, the second decision level. And then he chooses left and proceeds to the inner cave, where he can choose to fight the dragon or try to convince the dragon to spare his life. So there's a bit of a game element here. But the framework we're going to use is something called Impress.js. All right? So let me just take a look and see. If I was going to start off this Dragon Game thing that I've downloaded from my files, mine's just like yours, right? So there's a couple things I want to kind of point out here. First of all, we don't have a JavaScript document. That's kind of a custom JavaScript document. What we start off with is just an index.html page. Here it is, right? With some text. And here's an example of that. So we're using, first of all, whenever we use Impress.js, and I'll go over the Impress.js framework in a bit, right? Because this is what today's class is about, a new kind of API we have access to. Here's an example. I say, you know, my div tag, I put an ID of impress, right? I have a couple of CSS files here. One of them is our main CSS file, which is right here, as well as our reset CSS, which is right here. Reset CSS, the reason why we use that is because all browsers on their own have its own styles, like each browser. So if you load up Chrome as an example, and you're using Chrome, Chrome has its own styles that are kind of built in that they use, so that way, or Chrome uses, so that way it kind of styles your page. Same thing with Firefox, Internet Explorer for now, all kinds of other stuff. These have, you know, browsers have their own styles. So we use reset.css, right? So that way it resets the your styles to nothing. That's why we use reset, and it's included in this file here, right? For those of you coming in, just talking about the first assignment number 1. All right, and then please sign in. We have a chance if I can get you to pass that around for me. So again, I'm just exploring the first index.html page of this thing, right? Again, you can get this stuff for those of you coming in. Just to repeat, if you go to my GitHub, the code base for this stuff is on my GitHub. If you look at, if you kind of go in there to my repositories, and if you search the dragon, right? It's not this one. It's not COMP100 the dragon. That's for another course. It's the dragon, this one, which is COMP397. I recommend you fork it. You click fork on your GitHub, and it'll actually download and include these files on your GitHub, your own personal GitHub repository. Okay? So that's where I'm getting. That's where I'm getting these files from. It's called the Dragon. You can find them on my GitHub, right? And you would have to. I recommend you fork me on GitHub so that you have them as well on this one. Okay. So going back. So again, so I've got a couple of style sheets here. We're using a new framework, a new API. We're not using Crate.js for this one, for this assignment. We're going to talk about Crate.js throughout the course. But for this assignment, this isn't a Crate.js assignment. This is an assignment to document, show me your documentation skills, your technical document we're going to create with this thing for the Dragon. Okay? So let's run this thing before, if I talk about it, you want to understand what it does. So I'm going to run this thing. What Impress.js does is it almost creates a PowerPoint slide-like environment. So here's Impress.js. Okay? If I click on, let's read this thing. So you're on a planet full of dragons, right? In front of you, you see 2 caves. In one cave, the dragon is friendly and will share his treasure with you. And the other dragon is greedy and hungry and will eat you on sight. Right? Which cave do you go into, Ali?
2, because I want to fight.
Come on. Do you go into cave 2? All right. You go into cave 2. You approach the cave. It is a bright and cheerful cave, right? A large white dragon approaches you and gives you his treasure. So you win. I can start over now. And if you notice, I swap back. The actual page swaps in and out. It looks like a PowerPoint presentation or kind of slides, right? That's what Impress.js does. And we'll talk about Impress a little bit. Okay, so you go into cave 1. What happens? Let's see what happens. You approach the cave. It is dark and spooky. A large red dragon jumps out in front of you. He opens his jaws and gobbles you down with one bite. He eats you, right? So that's really the game. I don't want you to give me back the dragon. Please, when you get this this assignment, you make your own story, okay? So I don't want to have please do not send me back the dragon as your assignment. I'm not going to mark that one. You'll get 0. I want you to make your own story, your own way of doing things, right? And I don't want you just to leave it simply blank like this. I want you to show me a little bit of maybe some pictures, you know, that kind of thing. Or produce a theme. And, you know, see how this is all gray in the background over here, this part? The gray background, please change it to something else, right? Make some changes, guys and girls, right? Make it your own. If I get this back, you're not going to get your marks, all right? So let's talk about this. What do I want you to do? Going back to the assignment that I'm talking about. So again, right now it gives you the choice of going into cave 1 or cave 2, right? We're going to talk about this thing in a second. Or overall one decision level, or node, if you will. I want you to extend the functionality of the site to include 2 more decision levels for the player. Okay, we'll talk about that. So example, you're right now, do you go left or right? This is the first node, right? If you go to the right, as an example, you're over here or over here. Sorry, that's where it would be. And then from there, right now, you can go, again, you have a choice of left to right again. And then you keep going left to right again, and then there's an outcome. I want you to have 7 negative outcomes where the dragon or not the dragon, but something destroys you, eats you, you get lost, you lose the game somehow. 7 bad things can happen to you, okay? And only 1 good thing can happen to you. There's only one way out of this maze, this labyrinth, through space, time traveling, whatever you're going to make. It's your story, right? And so there's only 1 path of positive outcomes. If you look at the path of positive outcomes on here, it says 1 path of positive outcomes. It doesn't have to be like this. You can draw this any way you like, right? But this is the basic, the bare minimum that I'm looking for your story, okay? So what I mean by that is, let's make a story together, okay? Instead of the dragon, you know what? You wake up, you have no memory, and you're on an island. This is decision node 1, right? This is you're explaining it, okay? There's 2 things you can do. You can explore the beach or go into the forest. Which one do you do, Ali? I'm making this up as I go. This is decision node 1.
Forest.
Forest. Okay, so you go over here. Look, so this is the forest. Forest. You're in the forest. There's lots of sounds of nature, right? You hear a stream to your right. You think you hear some water dripping to your right. On the left, you hear some kind of wind blowing. Which way do you go? To the right or to the left? The stream or the wind?
The stream.
The stream. Okay, so you go over here. Look where you are. Are you going to win?
No.
No, you're not going to win, right? If you went to the wind, maybe you would have, right? Let's say you went to the wind. Okay, you went to the wind. On your left, you feel, for whatever reason, on your left, you feel like it's a little bit colder. On your right, you feel like there's a moisture coming out. Which way do you go? To the right, where there's moisture, to the left, where it's feeling colder?
Moisture.
Moisture. Okay, moisture's over here. Do you understand what I'm doing? Right? If you went to the left, where you feel a little colder, you come to the left, and there is a helicopter blowing, the wind, right? And your friends say, there he is, there's Ali, save him. Zombies are on the island, right? Zombie island, right? I'm making this up, guys, but the idea here is that this is the kind of thing I want you to do. I want you to make a story that has 8 possible outcomes, right? At the minimum, I'm saying this at the minimum, right? 7 of those outcomes have to be bad at the minimum. 1 has to be good. I'm only allowing you to have 1 good outcome. If you make 20 outcomes, only 1 good outcome. All right? If you make more than 1 good outcome, lose marks. All right? That's how it goes. Questions around this before we continue this piece? This is called the decision node or decision tree matrix, if you will. Right? This is what we do in real games. If you think about a heuristic map, logic map, if you will, or level map, this is the kind of level map you can get into, especially when you have free-form games and all that kind of stuff. Now, because many of you aren't part of the game program, I'm not going to go into the theory of all this stuff. But the idea here is you make your own. So 7 negative outcomes at the minimum, 1 positive outcome due next week on Friday at midnight. Okay? Okay. But it's not about the game here, all right, as much. It's more around, that's why the Impress.js, we're using Impress.js because it's so easy to use. It's more around your documentation best practices. That's what I'm looking for from you. Let's go around the marks here for a second. So let's see how I do the marks. I say, well, look, there's 14 points. When I say marks here in the document, it means 14 points. 14 points for functionality, 12 points for internal documentation, 10 points for external documentation, and 4 points for version control, which means you have to use GitHub. So I'm getting you to use all your different things here. Okay, let's go back. Internal documentation. Ali, what is that? Here's some review. Comments. Okay, I don't want another document, right? It's sometimes like, in another previous class, when I did this whole thing again, I got like another document for internal documentation. No, internally means you internally document, like you put comments inside your code, along with your code. Who's never done comments with their code? It's okay if you put your hand up, right? I bet you any money, there's a lot of people that I would be like flashing my hand like this, like, jazz heads. I've never done comments. It's okay, if we're in a safe environment. You can admit to me this bad thing that you've done, right? And I'm not going to punish you, right? This is your chance to redeem yourself, right? And to do your goddamn documentation internally, right? And the reason for that is because if we don't do internal documentation and you hand off your project to somebody else one day in the future, they're going to go, Ali, what did you do, right? And they're not going to know who you are. Or Tom, if it's me, Tom, oh my God, your code sucks. What did you do here, right? If you don't know what's been done. So that's why internal documentation is really, really important. Okay, so let's talk about this first piece. This first piece is add, number one, part one, add 2 decision levels to the game for a total of 8 possible outcomes. And again, see decision tree diagram above is what I say, right? This is for a total of 14 points functionality, right? Again, this whole thing from your final mark perspective is worth 10% of your final mark in this course, all right? Each decision level will allow the player at least 2 choices, okay? That means that's 12 marks, okay? That piece. Only 1 positive outcome is possible for the player, 2 marks. If you make more than 1 positive outcome, you lose these 2 marks right away, right? It's like silly. Option, you may allow the player to go back to the previous node or cross laterally to a node on the same level. So that's more complexity, if you want that. When I say back to the previous node, I don't mean just go press back on the browser, okay? That's not good. That doesn't do it. Or you have to have a button that says back. And when you go back, even though you go back to the previous node, what I mean by that is, oh, you're back. The node knows that you're back. All right, you're not just going back and pressing back on the browser. That's not it. That's not what I mean. You're not going to get a mark for that. So when you go back to your previous choice, you wander back. Now you're back at the woods, and then the story goes like that. The story continues. Okay, D. Option. You may allow the player to find special items to help him win, or maybe the special item is required for him to win, or her to win. So let's say, for example, you're going to pick up a sword. Right? And the only way you can defeat the dragon or whatever the monster, maybe you need a flashlight, something that you need to face. Even if you go to the path of positive outcomes and you don't have your special item, you can't get to the end. It'll stop you. You'll die. It'll be another bad outcome, right? So it makes it more challenging. These are options you can build into your game, guys and girls. When you do this kind of stuff, you do your basic story first. You plot it all out. You make it all work, and then you do these options. All right. Because if you try and build this option in the beginning, you may not finish, right? This can lead you down I like to say, and I say this in some of my other classes, don't write yourself into a black hole, okay, where you'll never escape, right? It's bad. Plot out your assignment, all right, and get it done. And if you want to add features to it, or if you build in features, a potential to build in features, that's fine. Make sure that your assignment is doable. You only have about a week and a half, all right? So if you try and add too many things to your assignment, you may not finish in time, and that's bad. Okay, let's take a look at this piece. Number 2, include internal documentation for your program. Ensure you include a program header that identifies the source file names. When I say name, it's names, whatever. Let's say, for example, index.html. Author's name, your last modified by, when you last modified this bloody thing, the date you last modified, the program description, a revision history. Revision history, you might want to give a link to your GitHub. That's what I recommend you do. So that when I look in your document, I can go, oh, here's a link to the GitHub account, and I'm going to go there. In the past, some people have put nothing in revision history. Each of these things, if I've asked you for each of these pieces, look, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 1 mark per. If you don't do all these pieces, you're going to lose a mark. Each one you miss. So please do them all. Ensure your program uses contextual variable names that help make the program human readable. In other words, don't use X and Y if you're going to do anything with JavaScript, right? If you're going to use any kind of variable names, IDs, classes, all those kind of things, I want all of them to be contextual, right? It has to make sense. Like you don't want to make ID is equal to X. That doesn't make any sense. What does it mean, right? That's 2. 3, include external documentation for your program that includes 10 marks, external documentation, a company logo, table of contents, version history, and a detailed game description describing each node and possible outcomes. Okay. One thing that I normally do when I hand out this assignment is I also give you something called an external document template, and I forgot to do that today. So I'm going to put it up on, just because we're here and we're talking, I'm going to go into eCentennial here and put it up on your eCentennial as well. I forgot to do that this morning. So let's do that now. And we'll go over the template, because I don't want you to start a document from nowhere, right? I want you to have the ability for you to go in and then, you have everything that you need, as opposed to, saying, Tom, I don't know how to make this document kind of thing. How do I do that? That would be bad, again, right? So here's your Dropbox, your assignment number 1 Dropbox. Everything I do is electronic, like I talked about last time. So there is no, you're not going to hand anything to me. I don't want you to email me your assignment. Please don't do that. I'll just, I will deny it, right? Everything is here inside your eCentennial, right? So let me just add this document in while we do that kind of thing, because I forgot. There it is. Welcome. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. Okay, so you should have that as well. So if you go up on eCentennial, all the stuff I'm talking about is there. Let's go over this external document thing I speak of. So you have an external document. Here's your template. Okay, it's a template, right? Look what it says here. Insert a company logo here, which means, right? I want you to put together a logo, okay? Simple graphics. It could be your name in a graphic, logo kind of thing, whatever. You can use any program of your choice. You can make a funny symbol, all right, for your logo. Please don't download somebody else's logo and call it your own. That would be bad, all right? This is your own personal logo. Think about it as, your signet ring of power, right? This is the thing that you're going to mark all of your documents with. This is you, all right? So I don't want this to be someone else's stuff. It's got to reflect you. Like, for example, maybe if I was going to be me and it was for me, and I was making a logo, and let's say I'm not artistic, because maybe some of you aren't. It doesn't matter. You could simply put your initials. My initial is TT, Tom Tsiliopoulos, right? I could put my initials together, color them a little bit, right? Whoop, there's my logo. Worst case. I'm just saying. So you have to put that together. This is worth marks for you, right? It's minimal. All right, it's not like a lot of marks here, but if you notice what it says, a company logo is worth 2 marks, so 2 points for your external documentation, right? A table of contents, well, the external document comes with kind of a base external, an area for table of contents. This is where you're going to put this thing. Hey, take a notice here. I've got these square brackets. See these square brackets? It tells you how to put your document together. Please don't leave these square brackets in here after. This is a template, right? Get rid of the square brackets. If there's stuff in the square brackets you're not using, get rid of it. All right, don't use it up here. People have handed me this back before, and I got this exact document back with their modifications and the square brackets. Please don't do that. It's like the ugliest thing ever. By the way, it's not May 16th, 2012 either, right? Please don't give me May 16th, 2012. If you're going to put the date, make it the date that you kind of submitted your document, right? Same thing with the title and all this kind of stuff. These are all things you can modify in your Word document. Take a look. There's a version history here. This is the part that kind of confuses people. All I expect here, there's 2 possibilities, right? You can go into your GitHub. I would accept this, right? So I'm going to go into my GitHub. Oh, God. All right, hold on a second. Let's take a look. And I'm going to go into my project, right? So let's say, for example, my project was the dragon. So I'm going to go with the dragon. Right, there it is. I go into my project deck, and inside there's commits. I got 4 commits in this particular case, right? Worst case scenario, take a snapshot of this, right? Your commit history, a snapshot. I'm like, literally, they take a snapshot of the picture and put it here. Worst case scenario. I would also like your link to GitHub. That would be good, so that I have your link to GitHub a couple of places inside of your, in your internal documentation as well as in your external documentation. Why? Why do I want these links to GitHub? Because you'll forget to give me it, right? And I won't know where to find your files. And if I can't get to your files, I can't mark your files, which means you're going to get 0. Please don't do that, right? I need a link to your GitHub. Your GitHub is going to be the way I can look at your files. I don't want you to upload your files to eCentennial, all right? There's no need for that. I have GitHub. If you know how to use GitHub, which is part of this thing, right? Give me a GitHub link. That's what I want. Okay, the other thing is that I mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. Your site has to be live, okay? This is not you make your files and somehow I download it and make it work as a Git. We're doing web pages here, guys, right? Who does not have access to the school web pages? All right, to make your own site in this, with a school server. If you don't have access, please get access. You need to get that access going, right? However, I'm going to give you another option today, so you can do something different if you need to. If you hate the school server and you think the school server is too slow, we're going to talk about a way to do that today in a different way, okay? All right, so your version history is here. So let's go back to that other document here, with your assignment document. I'm just going to kill this for a second. And then we'll take some questions, because I know you're going to have some, or you should have some anyway. A detailed game description. Huh. What does that mean? My game is a story about Zombie Island, all right? And Ali gets lost. He wakes up. My character's name is Ali. No, nothing related to any characters living or dead, okay, right? And I'm just saying, right? And Ali, my main character, the hero of the story, Ali the Great, right? He ends up on the island, right, of zombies. And this is my story. I'm just making this up here as I go. So you understand? Or if you're documenting the dragon, it'd be, you find yourself in a cave. You start off in a cave, talk about your story, right? Your story description is down here, right? See where it says game overview? There's also gameplay mechanics, camera, controls, saving and loading, interface sketch, menu and screen descriptions. Hold on. Do you have any of this stuff? No, you don't have any of this stuff here. This is a generic template for any game you make, right? I'm giving you this so that way you can make other games in the future, like your next assignment. You can use the same document, modify it, make it your own, company logo, all that kind of stuff, right? And you may need some of these other sections. If you don't need the section, what should you do? Huh? Delete it. Get rid of it. I don't want to see it, right? Only put the sections in here that I want. The rest of the sections, get rid of them. They're just for this particular assignment. Save your document. Don't kill your template. That would be bad, right? Although you can still download it from eSenteno, worst case scenario. Okay, so you put your description up there, and then on the end, if you notice there's extra stuff here, you just remove these pages that don't make any sense. Okay, because there's a bunch of other features, different things. Future features you might want to keep in, things that you may have wanted to add in the future, or maybe some design notes for yourself, like things like, I wanted to do things, these are my things I would have added in, that kind of stuff. Also, cheat codes. Sometimes people add in some special sections for bonus marks. Oh my God, did I say bonus marks? I did. Bonus marks, right? You have your story and you want to do extra stuff, options, like I said in the story. There's opportunities here for bonus marks where you can add some cheat codes, right? Something like that where you can find yourself at the end. Somehow, it gives you, there's a guide that comes up. Hey, for Ali, there's a pretty island princess that comes and finds him and says, Ali, it's this way, right? And leads him to the helicopter, right? Cheat codes. I know, Ali. I'm incriminating you. It's okay. But at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, even though I'm joking around, what I'm trying to show you is that you can put whatever cheat code you want, as long as you know the special cheat code that no one would know. How would I know that you're putting in options? How do I know that I should give you bonus marks? How do I know? In here, put it in your document. Bonus section, Tom, I added these bonus features because if I don't know, I can't mark you. I may miss it, right? It's possible, right? It's happened before where I've missed your bonus mark. So please, please, please indicate here that you've got a bonus section, even though it doesn't say it. Create some place where you're going to get bonus marks. If you have no bonus marks or you didn't do anything extra, that's okay. Don't put anything in. But if you have put your extra work in and you want me to know about it, put it in here, right? You're going to get something for the extra work that you do. Okay, let me go back. So again, company logo, table of contents, version history, a detailed game description. I want you to share your files on GitHub. There's two pieces to this. If you just make your repository, your own repo on GitHub, and you store your files up there like a storage area, like you're using, Dropbox, right? You only get 2 marks. You get full marks when you have commits, when you actually show that you're using GitHub the right way. Where every milestone you go along in your program, you stop. Example, I'm going to use you, really. I'm sorry, you're my scapegoat today, right? But it's a good thing because everyone on YouTube is going to know your name from now on. That's it, right? So the way it works is this. Let's say Ali's working on his file, or Tom is working with Ali on his file, right? And, we come to a point where we get to a milestone, right? Some place where we have a stopping point, with, if you will. Or we've worked about an hour or 2 hours. And you know what? We're pretty happy with our work. What do? You send things up on GitHub with a commit. Why? Because just in case, Ali's dog comes and eats his computer, right? You still have his files up on GitHub. That's one of the reasons. And let's say, for example, I made a change, right? Oh man, and now I broke my code somehow, right? I can always go back on GitHub and download the previous version, right? If I only have it on my local machine, right, and I broke my code, I could spend hours trying to fix it, and it's a waste of your time. So please don't do that. That's why I encouraged you to use GitHub to demonstrate your version control best practices. All right, submitting your work. An external document, only Word or PDF, please. Okay, I don't want like open open office documents or anything like that. Please, Word or PDF. You guys all have access to that. A link to your project files on GitHub, preferred. Worst case, if somehow, I don't know why you decide not to use GitHub, so you can lose automatically four marks for that, right? Give me your zip files. Worst case, all right? Or if you feel nervous, like you feel nervous somehow, I can't access your GitHub account, which is available, you know, anywhere in the world. As long as Google is up, I have access to GitHub. Or as long as, sorry, let me go back. As long as Amazon Web Services is going, GitHub is running, right? But just in case you feel nervous about it and you feel like, you know, like putting up your files as well, you can do that. I still want your GitHub link, all right? I prefer to look at that. All right, wow, it's really hot in here. I don't know if you guys know, you know, feel it's really bloody hot. Give me that bloody thing, yeah? This is your rubric. So if you notice, functionality-wise, 14 marks, internal documentation and readability, all that kind of stuff, 12 marks. It's almost as much as functionality here. Why? Because this is about a documentation thing. This is not so much the functionality of your game. It's neat to make your game. It's the trick to make you do the documentation. But really, it's really about documentation for this one. Here's your external documentation, 10 marks. So 10 and 12 is 22 points. 22 points out of 40, that means you pass. If all you do is documentation well, right, and your functionality sucks, right, you still pass, right? Please don't make your functionality suck. That would be really terrible, right? And it's not difficult to make this go. Of course, version control is another 4 marks. If you do version control, proper internal, proper external documentation, you get a, you know, probably 65%. All right, here's where I'm going to be a little bit of a stickler. It's weighted at 10% of your final mark, and every day that you're late, I'm taking off 10%, right? So please, I know some people, some professors don't accept it past a certain point. I won't either. There'll be a point in time where I'll say it's a cutoff. I'm not even going to mark it anymore, right? And it's a hard 10%. So if it's worth 10, you know, you get maybe at the most an extra few days, and then you're done, right? Please don't do that. That would be very bad if you, right? It just makes no sense. You have a week and a half to get this done. I would recommend that you start this immediately, right? I know you guys have other stuff. I should put in there that any code that's not your own, that if you, for example, let's say your partner's really good at HTML5 and CSS and JavaScript, but you suck at it, and you're here in this course because you think this is an easy course, right? So your partner passes you his code. Guys, I will figure it out. I know things that you don't know that I can figure out if you're cheating. Please do not do that. I have failed so many people just on cheating alone. I don't want to do that with this course. I want you guys to make your own stuff. This is an easy assignment. For you guys to do something else where you're cheating, this would be a bad time to do this, right? Please, I'm warning you in advance. It's the first time we're doing it together, and I want you guys to make this your own. Please. All right. That's it. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Although I've probably talked about it a couple times already. All right. Someone stole my pen, but I need you to sign it. Thanks. Yeah, someone stole my pen. All right. Any questions around this? I know that I've talked a bit about this. I'd like you to field some questions now before I shut this down because I'm going to move on to something else. Yes? It's an individual assignment. Yes, it is. All right, so it's something that you do on your own. You're not going to move. You're not going to do it with your partner. Thank you very much for that one. Is that a joke? All right.
Just a clarification.
No. Definitely. Clarification-wise, this is to be done you and you alone. Okay, it's not something that you're going to share with anybody else. Anyone else have any questions? Come on, guys. There's going to be questions. Girls, there's going to be questions. Yes. Oh no, the game has to be made. Yeah, that's a good question. Is that a joke too? No, yeah, that's definitely the game has to be made. Don't you worry about a tang, Batman. I'll make sure you know today, right? You'll know everything you need to know today about how to do it, all right? So we'll talk about that today, and we'll also talk next week. It's not due next week on Tuesday. It's due next week on Friday. So we'll have another chance for me to look at it, right? Before you guys submit. What? There's nothing there, right? Well, we'll go through it. Anyone else have any issues? Yes.
Will everybody have that same kind of like graph of the outcomes initially? It's just it'll be the name of the outcome will be different.
Well, that's a good question. So this diagram here, I mean, to me, this is a great addition to your description, your game description, right? You want to produce something like this for your game description to do maximum marks. Guys, please keep talking to minimum here. I got to do this assignment, and then we'll move on to other stuff. And then you can talk, right? All right. So at the end of the day, what we have in here is this path of positive outcomes. It's almost like a site diagram, isn't it? Right? So we talked about this last week where you can get, and this is a good question, Ali. If you go back to the tools I gave you, the links I put up on eCentennial for you, there is a tool on mind maps, site maps, right? One of them was bubble.us, this one here. And if you start brainstorming, it actually produces kind of the outcome that you need. Let me take a look at that. So here's my start, right? So this is like, let's say, wake up on island, right? And then from the island, when you wake up on the island, we're just doing the island of zombies, right? Now you have two choices. You can go, to the left. You kind of map it out where you hear, or where the jungle is, right? And maybe you go here to the right, where, to the right, which is, as an example, the beach, right? And this is the kind of stuff I want you to do. I want you to map it out for yourself before you do any coding, before you do your actual story, before any of this stuff. Map it out, because the majority of your assignment, going back to what we talked about, it's around documentation, right? It's about planning out your assignment, planning out your story, Mark, before you actually put it out. All right, so yes, this is definitely something I'm looking for. You can also, if you notice, even with this thing, you can save this object, this thing as an image. It's very, very simple. Bubble.us, free to use. It's a mind map. There's other mind mapping software out there as well that's free. All I'm asking you to do is kind of put together something like this, where you describe your description as well as what your game is about in a description format, like text. You're going to write it out. Any other questions? All right. So we got the dragon. You got your functionality. You have to make it work, but you've never seen this Impress.js stuff. We're going to talk about that in the next section. All right. What is Impress.js? How do you use it? It's a single page application. That's what it is that we're going to make, right? And we're going to make this slide-like effect. You guys never know, you haven't been shown how to do it, but it's very simple. All right, anything else before we move on? Yes? That's a good question, right? Next assignment 2, you're going to get something called the slot machine, which is going to come in after you get this one. So next week, you're going to get assignment 2, right? The slot machine. Assignment 3 is going to be the side scroller that you're going to make. We're going to make together. I'm going to build it up with you, all right, as an example. And then after that, you have your final project, right? And your final project can be on your own or with somebody else. So you get like 3 assignments by yourself, 1 assignment that you can do with somebody else, in a group of 2 only, not 3, 2, all right? So if you like partnering with 3 or more people, forget it. It's going to be 2, right? And then that'll be it. So there is no final exam in this course. The project will take that over. I know some people are like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy!" Right? On the bad side, hold on. On the bad side of this no final exam, that the final project, just to answer your question, is worth 30% of your final mark, right? And there's a 10% piece that's a presentation piece. We talked about this on day 1, right? So that means there's a presentation piece. You have to do 10%, right? Now there's 2 ways you can do the presentation, right? And by the way, as we go to the final days, like week 14 of this course, we're in August now. We're time traveling for a second, right? We're in August, right? And you're doing your final presentations. Some of you may not be ready, and some of you may not be comfortable doing your presentations, right? I'm going to give you an option to do a screencast, right? So in other words, you can either do a presentation up here, or you can screencast, like capture your screen and your voice, talking about your presentation with your partner. Right? So those are the 2 options for your presentation. That's worth 10% of your final mark. So that's 40% of your final mark is there. This one is worth 10. Oh, we have a midterm test, which we'll be doing, right, to test your knowledge of Create.js. So you need to study up on Create.js for week 7, which is when the midterm test is going to come in. And that's it, really, at the end of the day. There's no other tests beyond that. That's the structure of the course, like we talked about in the first day. Are you okay with that? You're excited about no final exam, right? It's a good thing and a bad thing, guys. It's a 2-edged sword. The good thing is there's no final exam. You don't have to study for that stuff. The bad thing is it's 40% of your final marks. If you mess this up, the final project, you're not going to do well, right? Huh? 30 plus 10. 30% for your final plus 10% for your presentation. That's 40%, right? Any other questions around that? That's kind of an off question. Anyone else have any questions around this assignment? So let's go back. So again, it's the Dragon, document the Dragon. It's assignment number 1. It's due next Friday, May 29th at midnight. My God, it's only May 29th, right? At midnight, which means before midnight, not like on Thursday, 12:01. That means like at Friday, 11:59, right? That's pretty much what I'm asking for it. Please, please, please take a look at the document before I would recommend highly that you don't let it go, forever. Start this off as soon as you can because you don't have a lot of time. And I'll say it like this. I used to say the devil's in the details. I'll just say it like this. God's in the details. Better that it's more positive that way. God's in the details here to make you have perfect marks. You think this is easy, right? It looks straightforward, but it's not. There's some issues here. The documentation piece, if you've never done it before and putting together a technical document, it can be a pain in the you-know-what, right? So please, please, and I'm not going to say ask because that's not what I meant, right? But, it can be a pain. So please, 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 just concentrate, get this stuff done because it's important for you to do your planning piece because as we move to more complicated projects, this is critical. If you don't do your planning, you're going to write yourself where? Into a black hole. Right? And then you won't be able to finish your assignments and you're not going to do well in the course. So this is almost like me trying to help you to get your planning up and going. Okay, I'm going to stop it here and then I'm going to continue with other stuff.